That's our audience.
I love it. That's so awesome.
Karah, I just wanted to say that it's always so much fun to collaborate with you, and I feel like we've done so many projects over the years, and now looking back and trying to document some of those projects that we've worked on. So it just seemed like the right time to talk to you again while I'm producing episode 2 of Shifting Circles. And with this episode, it's really my intention to help spread Patricia's teachings to a larger audience.
Mhm.
And so just through storytelling, I'm trying to explain how profound her teachings were for me. And I believe they were also the same, maybe with different aspects, but were as profound for you as well. And so I thought you were a good person to not only to help describe her teachings and how it impacted your life, but also since you do her website and you know her personally, that you can also say how it's, like personally affected you.
Yeah, that's so important because, her teachings are so relevant. And every time I'm having like a challenge or I'm seeing something that's really feels like depressing and heavy in the world, I'm like, okay, let me go back to that, 5-step process and like come back into alignment with the force of life. And then it's just so easy to make a decision of like, yes, this is in support of life. And no, that's not in support of life. So the force of life becomes primary. And what I found so affirming when I first met her was that I had just gotten out of acupuncture school and started a practice. And so I moved to Seattle and started Dragonfly Holistic Healing Center. And we had a space where we could have groups. And somebody said, oh, you need to meet this woman, Patricia Ann Davis. She's a Navajo wisdom keeper and she's teaching all over Seattle and all over the world. So I said, yeah, let's definitely figure out a time to have her in. And she came in and kind of like the group of people who already knew about her work came in. And so it ended up being like a mini ceremonial change process because everyone was already like in alignment with the work. And so, but that was my first experience. And what I found affirming over and over again was like, oh, this is about coming back into the force of life, the force of nature, the natural order. And this is exactly what Chinese medicine teaches. So it's really like all indigenous medicines come from the force of nature being our primary life. It's our primary mode of life expression. And we're just one aspect of that. And when you see and feel what that feels like to be in a group of people who are also saying, yes, what we're here for is in support of life, and everything that is not in support of life is destructive, and we don't want that. And then you just, it's really easy to cast things aside. Or like editing. No, that's not right. So that's how I met her initially. So then we did Altai. And during this process, I was trying to coordinate all these different people who were all over the world and all going to Altai. And here she was, this holder of the wisdom that was going to be the portal opening aspect. And so I said, well, like, where's your website? And she's like, well, I used to have one. I said, well, let's make one. So just the process of making the website was this enormous teaching for me because she was using language that I had to like ask so many questions to wrap my brain around, because it wasn't just like she was using this word. She had chosen this word very specifically, or had created a word that was the translation from Navajo because there wasn't a word in English. So then I said, okay, let's make a glossary so that I can remember all these words. And I think the glossary, just reading through the list of words, like word concepts, they're not even words, because language, the translating to English is difficult because English is this language of commerce, whereas Navajo and other nature-based systems are based in the description of the actual world. Like a rainbow is a rainbow, and what you feel when you see a rainbow is part of that balance and harmony, the expression of the balance and harmony of Mother Nature in this beautiful format. And we get to be part of that by witnessing and appreciating it.
When you did her website, it enabled her teachings to go to a different level, if you will, because so before, every time when you'd come into contact with Patricia, you had to hear her tell her teachings directly from her. And then when it went on the website, it's like it amplified it, so that more people could see the teachings. And then if they did listen to her, they could go back for more information. And it was like 24/7, always available for people to look at. And so that's kind of what I believe what we're doing right now is taking it to just one more level where we're putting it into video format. And the interview that I did with her in 2020, when I did that interview, I wasn't up to speed on my video editing skills. I had kind of lost them along the way, and the platforms had changed. And so during 2020 and 2021, I reinvigorated my knowledge of editing. I'm looking back at these teachings that we did in 2020, and I'm like, this has to get on YouTube. This has to get on wherever people are going to watch it. If it's going to be shorts on Instagram or something like that. And so that's kind of what I'm working on. And I feel like, again, that's just amplifying it that little bit more. And so that will hopefully drive more people to our website, and more donations, and more energy behind her work, because like you said, it's a gift.
It is, and it's such an ancient teaching. I don't know if ancient is the right word, but it's a foundational teaching. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that I found in knowing her for the number of years now, is that every time I would sit and listen to her talk, it would go a little deeper, and I would understand it a little bit more. And it would go a little deeper, and I'd understand it a little more. And how important that was for like allowing the seed of wisdom to grow inside, is to really maintain that constant awareness of the truth of it and the truth of things. So during a really difficult time in my life, every time I would contact her, she would just be able to get right down to it. It's like, the truth is that the universe is in support of you and your child. So just stay in that knowledge, and everything else, the doors will open, other doors will close, and just don't feed in to all these distractions from that reality. And that was so helpful to me during that time, to stay really centered in what was most important.
I heard her say it's treasury knowledge. Mm-hmm. So like you said, foundational knowledge. And I noticed that each time I listen to that interview and she's speaking, every time I've edited it, which now I think this is like the third time I'm going over it, I learn more. And I'm like, wait, I've totally listened to this, like, mm-hmm. I don't know how many times, and I keep getting tidbits of things. And then it's almost as if you get the information when you can absorb it. So like I listened to the interview many times, but not like wasn't ready maybe for a particular message. And then all of a sudden I listen again and I hear it in this new sort of light, and it becomes, I guess maybe it's like her teachings are like watering their, like every time you watch them or read through them, you get this little like sprinkle of more knowledge or something like that.
Oh my gosh. I have to show you what's right here. You said sprinkle of knowledge. And I designed this for her as a gift when she was working on a project. So this was a gift.
So I've seen that before, and I didn't know that you called it the sprinkle of knowledge.
Well, you said sprinkle of knowledge, and I was like, oh, there it is right there.
Yeah.
But I always have this up next to I've moved it around the house because every once in a while you can ignore things. So yeah. I put it in a new place, so I'm like, oh, I got to remember that. Just that affirmation, it's so affirmative in whatever is going on in life. It's like, okay, let's just get back down to it. We're just breathing. We're like consuming air, transmuting it into our cells, and we're eating food and it's going into our cells, and then we're releasing everything that's not necessary anymore. Yep. So that constant in-breath and out-breath of the life experience. And it's so easy to get caught up in the nonsense, of just daily life, and like being irritated because someone was driving too fast or like cut in front. And it's So I have lots of driving angst. I guess I'm like cursing, with my child in the car, because that's where I still have those triggers the strongest. And I realize this because you're going at such speed, like it's really dangerous. Like, and having been in a severe car accident, I still have, them in dealing with the injuries from that. I mean,
well, probably some PTSD too, because I know I got in a bad accident in the mountains. And so I'm fine if I'm on a normal ride, but if I go up into the mountains, I find myself like clinching, like I'm like, if I'm not driving, I'm like really, I get really, it's not comfortable for me to go driving in the mountains anymore.
oh, that's yeah.
I like being there. I just don't like getting there.
Getting there is the hard part.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a wisdom right there.
I know.
Getting
But,
there.
maybe that's like the struggle that we have to go through in order to get to, because how much I like going to mountains. I mean, I'm like looking for energy vortexes and like hiking around and, but it's like that ride there. I'm just like torn up,
Yeah. And there's so many ways in which, as you get older, you have had, we all get these experiences that are so traumatizing. And then we just get reminded them over and over again.
Yes.
So it's this constant loop of like going into the trauma and being like, okay, now I get out of the trauma, like going into the trauma, getting out of the trauma. And part of what I found, even more like expanded upon the wisdom knowledge that I learned in acupuncture school, when studying with Patricia, it's really focused on the community. Like these ceremonial processes are together with the people. And it can be any group of people. It can be people who all are interested in the same thing, who don't know each other. It can be a family. It can be a business. It can be people who are trying to accomplish something, that are all engaged. But it could be people who are coming from just different places in the world and not know each other and not have a common purpose, and you still find the alignment because we're all in the same expression of life and affirming each other in that. And then every problem that exists in humanity is all because of our own mental issues. Mm-hmm. We're like deconstructing what is real that you can see and know, and trying to create something in its place because we think that we can do it better somehow. I don't know what it is, but I see it and I do it. And you see the impact of it in every aspect of life. Like healthcare and education is where I have the most experience. And it's just mind blowing that we have constructed these systems to work in such a dysfunctional way. And it's almost like they've been intentionally crafted that way so that some people can suck the resources out. It's not for the goal of making society better. And that's what the ceremonial change process is really like. Well, let's come back into the fact that we are all on this small planet. We are all one community, and we have to find a way to live our lives so that we can all survive and thrive.
Mm-hmm. That is like the perfect lead into what, how I'm starting this episode off is with Mind Unwind. Because when I came back from Altai and I had just been listening to Patricia talking for hours in the car, I spent a few days with her. And so my whole way back, I'm just thinking about her teachings. It was so fresh in my mind. And then coming back, I realized I don't want to go back to doing what I was doing before, because it wasn't truly supporting community the way I wanted or the way I felt like it could. And so when when the idea of Mind Unwind popped into my head, it was like a playground for the creative imagination. And I really wanted it to be for all ages, for everybody. And what I really loved was how it brought together not only artists, but also musicians. It brought meditation. You brought meditation to the studio. It was so multifaceted, the different ways that you could unwind your mind. It actually kind of blew my mind. I didn't know that was going to happen at its inception, it was, and I also think it was a point where as a community, we could go through that ceremonial change process. I think Patricia actually held a ceremony at the gallery one overnight. And I now, 10 years later, a lot of the kids that came into Mind Unwind were graduating high school this last year.
Oh, wow.
And to reconnect with those kids and those parents during the graduation process, I was like reminded of how much impact those art classes had on the kids. And I mean, we even made like little video movies and stuff with some of the kids, and hearing them now going to college and going off and doing all these things, I'm like, wow, that really impacted the community. Like we really did do those things. And so, so her teachings really guided me to try to make a platform and a space for that.
I remember you contacted me when you decided to do this, and I was like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Like it was a natural out picturing of this experience that we had together. And so of course we just need a place to kind of explore what it meant and to affirm it and to share it with others, like in whatever our strengths are. Mm-hmm. So there were so many opportunities to do that in the gallery because it was such a dynamic space and changing every month and new classes all the time. So It was so much fun to have a place to really deeply experience that. Yeah. And it gave me the month that I got to take over the gallery with meditation and the paper arts and the mandala and just this experience of creating a place to be in peace was what I really needed at that time. So
even I think about all the different artists that exhibited there, the different exhibits we had. I remember this one, Walter, I had met at like a salvage store. And he said he was an artist and he was painting the series on the back of doors, like, because he worked at Architectural Salvage. So he had all these like just flat doors, and he was painting these pictures of these butterflies' wings that he came across. He had taken pictures of butterfly wings when he drove from New York to Seattle, when he moved to Seattle. And he goes, but I don't know if I'll ever get done with it. And I was like, oh no, because he showed me pictures of them. I said, no, you need to show these in my gallery. Like what month do you want? Let's set a goal. And so he was like, okay, let's do May. And this was like in October. And so I remember even in January, he had me over to his apartment and was like, well, this is my progress. I don't know if I'm going to be done by May. And I'm like, you've got this, let's do it, And so cheered him on. And I remember the day that his exhibit opened, I had already hung up his pieces, and it was a spring day and the sun came out. And he walked through the door, and right behind him, I kid you not, was a butterfly. The butterfly got trapped in the gallery, and we were like trying to get it out. And like, and he goes, how did this happen? Like, this is like magic. And things like that happened at that gallery all the time. And it really was a special time and place.
And it was so an affirmation of that experience. And then just seeing how you've taken that time and place and like recreated it in virtual place. So It's so exciting because we don't even need like a defined space.
Physical place anymore. Yeah.
Right. Because it's a really an experiential place that we're experiencing together. And we have so many different ways of accessing it. So this is like the new portal to that dimension.
Yeah. No, it is. And
Mind Unwind continues.
Exactly. And I think it's a heart space, because it really was. I remember one time my friend Micah said, can I do an interpretive dance one night? And I was like, yeah, why not? And so we picked a day, and he kind of told me what he was going to do, but like, I didn't know exactly what he was going to do. And, how there was the loft up above? Mm-hmm. Well, he did his dance and, somehow, had put honey on his body, and people dropped from the upper pillowcases of down of feathers. Ooh. And all these feathers landed on him, and he did this interpretive dance of him hatching. I remember looking out and thinking and seeing all the feathers flying all over the gallery. And I'm thinking, who allowed this to happen? Who's going to clean it up? Like I was like, this is insanity. Like, who's in charge here? I'm like, oh wait, it's me. What this is crazy. And I literally saw people walking on the sidewalk stop in front and just like trying to figure out what's going on inside the gallery.
So awesome, because it's just like the image of like having a glimpse into someone's mind for a minute. And this week we've been talking at the middle school I'm working at right now about compassion and empathy. And it's really that process of experiencing life through a different point of view. And that to me is like the purpose of art, the purpose of music, the purpose of any kind of creative expression, because we're allowing someone in. And it's like the courage of the artist is to say, I'm going to share my brain with you for a few, and I hope you get something out of it or not. But it's just the willingness to do that we get to build in each other, when we're in a supportive environment like that, where it's like, yeah, sure, somebody can just go hatch. We have a hatching the one day, and then all the other things that happen.
I remember another time David Wallaga was like, I want to teach art to kids and teach them how to draw chickens. And I was like, okay. He's like, do you mind if I bring live chickens into the gallery? And I'm like, okay. So we had chickens running around while the kids are drawing chickens. And it was, I don't know if I've ever seen kids light up so much, like they're just, it was really quite magical,
When I was going through art school, I had the same process of just like, you just like get into something and you just make this giant mess and there's things everywhere and it's so disorganized. And then at the end of that catharsis, for me, the process of cleaning up became like, oh, yes, okay, this is what I did. This is what came out of it. This is why I needed to do all these things. And now I got to make the space clean so that I can have an empty palette to do it again. And then after the car accident, when I couldn't make art anymore because I had lost the sensation in my right arm, I had to go find a different outlet. And so that's when meditation became so important. So I was able to go into my own mind and just observe like the imagery, everything happening there, and have a deeper understanding and awareness of it because I'm observing it in myself, in my stillness. And then to watch my own mind be wiped clean so that I could start afresh and make different decisions or think differently about it or understand things in a different way was really amazing. And that was when I came out and just said, whatever reason I had this experience, after the surgery and I started getting some use back in my right hand, I have to share meditation. Mm-hmm. And that's when I said I needed to not just have a practice where I was treating clients, but to create a community practice where I was treating many people either through needles on the chair or through a teaching or through a meditation experience or through Patricia's teaching. So all these things lined up of like my needs and her offerings just came together in the same way that you're talking about Mind Unwind did, so that there could be we've had so many conversations, and also with Sandra too, about like, well, how do we, this is so vital. Like it is so vital that people have this understanding, this way of coming back into what is true in ourselves and not looking for it outside or having somebody tell us, but actually knowing and resonating with what the truth is of what is life. What is important to life? What we are really doing here in this body on this earth right now. So all of those things, we have to affirm each other in them. So it's almost like we get to triangulate, like ever since that one experience of Altai, we're like triangulating, like how do we create, what does it look like if we look at it this way? Well, how does it feel if we do it this way? Or I have this idea. And it's almost like a template of how things can function, because even just with you and I, we like, work really intensely on something for a little while and then go off in our separate ways and do our other things, and you come back and it's the same feeling every single time of like, yes, how do we get this done? This is so important. Like everyone has to know what Patricia is teaching and how can we like frame it in a way to make it easier.
You know what, that I think that's what the framing it is what I'm really trying to, I'm working really, really hard on. And I'm trying to use a creativity that is innate to me with video production, because I think that, I think that all of this like practicing I've been doing with other things is really, I wasn't quite ready, even though I did that interview with her in 2020. I wasn't ready to really launch it yet because I had to refine storytelling techniques in this in a video format. So it's really taking her teachings, which, like you said, are ancient, and I feel like were mostly probably told through storytelling originally, but now we're in this new age of of um, of transmitting stories in a different manner. And so I want to respect the old ways, but also merge it with this new technology basically that we have. And so I think that merging of the two ways is why it's taken time. And you know, I want it to be right. You know, I want to honor you know, what has been passed down through her. And so much of it, I'm just pulling sound bites of her actually talking. I almost can't explain her teachings. I don't feel like have the authority to, you know what I mean? So I'm using a lot of the sound bites, and yeah, and just trying to figure that out, you know? So, and that's another reason why I really wanted to talk to you, because if you have ideas or, you know, anything that we can co-collaborate.
It's not like when you're talking, when I'm having this image of like trying to squeeze something really big into a small space.
Yeah.
And like, how do you like just get the one thing through at a time? So maybe it's like digestible parts in a certain sense. I really like, I think when we first started talking about shifting circles, is the idea of like how our direct experience can be something that we share so that other people can resonate with it.
Yep.
Because like we're both moms, you go through like every day, you're making breakfast, you're going to school, you're driving around, you're getting ready for dinner. Maybe squeeze it in at 7. I don't know when it happens, but it's just like this constant process of like, how do you fit in the most important things of the day? And in there are the lessons of like, well, how do we treat other people? So if you were in this situation, how would you want to be treated? Because there's a lot of ideas about service and about like giving things to people or helping them out with their daily lives, which are all very good, but it's almost it's like too late when somebody is homeless or sick. Like we've missed our chance to prevent that from happening. But all the things that are in the way, ideas and thoughts and rejections and not just so much nonsense in the world that it's not true. Like we are teaching things that are not true. We are believing things that are just like experientially not true.
I keep coming back to this idea that we live in like an upside down world. I go to like the school activities with my kids with all these different things, and I'm like, what's like going on, you know, like, and that's how I feel like a lot. I spend a lot of my day like, wait, and then one day I was just like, I think we just live in an upside down world, like, you know, and ever since I like kind of thought that in my head, it just keeps coming back. And it's like kind of what you're saying. It's like we need to ground ourselves, you know, and it's hard to stay grounded because everything wants to pull you away, you know, like the distractions are real. It's hard to stay focused on a spiritual project. Like I think of shifting circles as a to me it feels like a soul mission of mine. And it's really easy to say like, oh no, today I need to do this, or today, and so I allowed myself the summer just to do whatever with the kids. It was our last summer with Eloise before she went to college, and just tried to spend as much time with family as I could. But I told myself in September, I got to do episode 2. Like this, I need to get this done. And so it's just been my focus. I'm talking to you to hopefully, reinvigorate some ideas, and then talking to David Wallaga next week, and a couple other people, just to, really like kind of reignite that, that space that we shared, so that it can be fresh and get that message across, I guess, or that feeling. I think it's a feeling that I want to get across more than anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that, thinking about it as a feeling, because it's the feeling that's the real intention that really attracts, the next thing to us. So as you're talking, one of the things I thought of is like, oh, you're creating a sacred space. And that's the whole point of like that ceremonial process, is you get all the things out, you empty out the things that are all in the way and all those obstacles and all the nonsense, and then just really come back into focus, into what's really true. And every time I do that, I'm like, gosh, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Once you like make the decision to do it, it's not that hard. It's just being in that and being like, okay, so I'm going to call Krystal, I'm going to call Sandra, I'm going to call this person. We're going to like start to get that resonance going again until it gets stronger and stronger. And having seen like the whole process of episode 1, and how it like almost like gestated. And then when you were able to finally put it together in the story that came from you, it had this whole context of your experience. And so, and I'm just like so delighted that you're taking this on as the next piece of it, because I feel like this is almost like how we do it every time.
Right.
It's like, right, creating the sacred space and then resonating with what needs to be shared or said, and what that feeling is and what we really want to share. We don't want to talk about the nonsense. We want to talk about like what it feels like when everything comes into alignment, and know that you've made the right decision, because the entire force of life just comes through you and comes out into this expression. Yeah.
And that is like, it's funny because I keep asking the universe, like, just place me where I am the highest use, like where can I do the most good? And then I start to realize, and all these signs keep going towards, I really need to do this next episode. Like, this is what is important. I had it in my head September, and now we're at the end of September, and I'm still working on it. But every day I do just a little bit, and I get a little bit further. And this conversation will help a lot, to have these conversations. It's special.
One of the things I'm seeing as you're talking is so like the portal that was created in Altai, and it came through. And I'm looking at it like this, but it's actually like this. Like it came through, and into Mind Unwind and all the things that happen. And the other thing that was happening simultaneously was the Occupy movement. Yes. And you mentioned it also in episode 1, but it's also like at that same time as like this exterior questioning of like, well, why do we do things this way? And why? Maybe there's another way, and like, would this work? And just so much experimentation happened. It was almost like that initial impulse of like breaking up the congealed yuck, so that
it's like an earthquake, like a spiritual earthquake kind of.
Yeah. And I felt like it was such a strong feeling of when the Occupy movement first happened. I was like, whoa. Well, there it is. Like, that's that impulsive energy that just came around the world, and it spread like wildfire, like nothing had ever spread before. Nothing. Because we have all this social media that you get to use and harness for this purpose. And that gets used for a lot of nonsense too. And this is one of those ways, is to say, let's use it for good. Let's only say affirming things. If you see something that's not affirming, say, that's not a very kind thing to say. I think this. So these are all the ways that we, help our kids make decisions about how they're going to interact with the nonsense.
Yeah. And it all comes back to intention. Like, what is your intention of even being on social media? When I go to my friend's coffee shop, it's right across the street from the high school, and I see all the high school kids come in, and yes, they're interacting, but they're on their phones a lot too. And a lot of times they're like sending each other messages as they're face to face, and I'm like, this is very meta. Yeah, it all comes down to intention. Like, what is your intentions with using those tools? And I know for me, like, I want to use social media and things like YouTube and different broadcast channels than traditional channels because everything's so censored. It's like, I worked in broadcast media in corporate news. I know how those messages are produced. And, they're very fear driven, and it's very corrupt with, who the advertisers are, and on things like, if it bleeds, it leads, like just the drama. And I think non-traditional media like YouTube is actually an amazing platform. And I'm hoping that it isn't, I'm sure it's censored in some sort of way that we don't quite understand. But I think it allows for a little bit more freedom than traditional media does. Now is the time, I guess, is what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it's finally time, and I've been just waiting for that time. And now it's like everything is pointing me like, okay, this is it.
And just so grateful that platform exists so that we can have these teachings out there. And so then that comes to this next point of like, well, maybe getting some like smaller, I don't want to say sound bites, but smaller bite-sized pieces of Patricia's talking.
Well, I'm writing down some notes because what you're saying is exactly what I've been trying to kind of do, and it's giving me some ideas because I'm trying to make little sound bites of Patricia's teachings and then put them together in a way that is palatable, because her teachings are very deep. And if you listen to her, you almost get hypnotized into a way of listening to her voice and what she's saying, to the point where I sometimes think people zone off and lose track, and so people's attention spans are so short these days. I'm trying to like really get it so that it's concise and bite size. So that's exactly what.
And one of the things she says herself is that when she starts off, she has to like deconstruct the thinking to like break it up so that there's space for the inherent wisdom to manifest.
Yeah.
So, and I want to say it that way because she's not putting things in. She's calling forth the inherent wisdom that is within all of us.
It's a reminder of what we already knew. Like, we already knew the natural order. We just forgot about it in our program to be aside from it. So it's like, it's just triggering something that we already know. I mean, there's nothing that she's saying that we don't know. It's just the reminder. I feel like the ancestors are behind this. I feel like the future generations need this. I don't know. It just felt, it was, yeah. So I've been kind of like, what sort of world am I in, and then I go out into like the normal world and I start to hear conversations people are having, and I'm just like, oh man, I don't know where I'm at right now. Like, I'm in this like in between worlds zone or something. I don't know.
As you were talking, it's just like these things coming into alignment, which is like the full moon is like when it's called syzygy, when the sun and the earth and the moon all come into
yeah.
Isn't that cool? So when these things come together, it's like we create our intention comes together in this moment, right? And when you're saying that, and now I'm feeling it, is this idea of like, well, when you are breathing that intention in of like being a earth being, then all of a sudden everything that you do has that meaning. Everything that we do, drinking the water, making the tea, chopping the wood, that's what Lao Tzu's like. Before enlightenment, you chop wood, carry water, and then you have this moment of understanding the great scheme of universe, and then you go back to chopping wood and carrying water, because those are the things of life. And it's all part of that, experience of being alive, and in celebration when we get to take those moments and be like, yes, The other thing I have to say is you are recording this for a reason. So like all the things that are coming to you, like when you watch it again, they'll come back and then you'll be able to take notes and stuff. So
yeah. And I think part of like my own personal mission has so much to do with being a record keeper, you know, like, cause I know I'm a connector and that's great. I have that innate ability, but a connector that also records things, I think is I'm preparing it for the future. Do you know what I mean? Because the connections happen now, but the lessons happen in the future. What we're making right now will be for the people in the future. And like, you know, that's I think I take the work seriously, you know, like, I mean, I have fun with it too, but at the same time, I'm like, no, I need to get this done. Like, this needs to happen. And I also really hope that it can spread awareness and eyeballs on her website and on like her donations. I see the trip that she made to France, and it's important work what she's doing, and she needs the financial support. Like that's something that I think, you know, and more people need to, hopefully, like those people in France, I know they helped raise money to get her there, and we just need to all collectively work together for her to be able to have those opportunities to go to those places, because it's so important to touch that electromagnetic field in that area of that planet where she's being called. It's like, I just think, you know, making those things happen are really important.
Yeah, the thing that I keep coming back to is what Carol Hiltner had created, that the one sheet that she uses. And I keep coming back to that because I was like, Carol's really onto something, because she was like an artist. She had the vision of it, and that was her, kind of like a sketch of like a way of helping to describe what it's like to be on that. It's like a roller coaster.
Yeah.
We experience it as a roller coaster because we really keep getting like torn in between these two worlds, like you're saying, and you get too much caught up in one and then have to like take refuge in the other one, and like, okay, this is the real world, and I'm just getting caught up in this like cyclone of insanity that's going on at all times. You know, it's like it seems self-perpetuating, but then there's so many amazing moments of clarity there. You see other people having the same syzygy and wanting to affirm that and affirm that. And so I hope that in that way, that when people see Patricia's work, they say, yes, that helps me to make sense of what I'm experienced too. And so that's part of like the gift of our time, the sharing that's being that it's occurring like cross-culturally, because becomes a part of this amazing possibilities of social media and the new media, basically.
I know, it's that infinite possibility thing.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see how this comes together, because I really feel it. Maybe we need to have a watch party and just like invite other people, and then just share it on a day, and then have like a talk with her after or something.
That would be awesome.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I love that idea. We could do, and if I had episode 2 done, we could have episode 1 and 2 viewed at the same time and just do a little intermission between 1 and 2. You know what I mean? Like maybe do like a question and answer with her in between or after, or, you know, like whatever. But I love that idea.
Or even previewing, like a little trailer of episode 2 when you kind of get, when it starts coming together, and you can get a short.
Yeah.
Or any one of the shorts.
Yeah. Oh,
we
I like this. I like where this is going. This is good.
Yeah. This will be this. Oh, I just got chills. Yeah. So if we like think about it, like, okay, once a month we release the short, and then, you know, if it doesn't work for Patricia every month, but to do one every quarter or something, or every season, and have a session where people can join in, you know. And I know John Raymer would promote it, and having her put it out to all of our groups. So
and it could even be if we sit down with her in person, we can also stream it so that other people can watch it like online, you know, make it multifaceted, so it's as many people, because that's what I keep getting told is it's as many, it's casting the biggest net that we can, like as many people that can ripple from it. So that's where I think the shifting circles, why it keeps shifting. Hopefully it keeps shifting bigger, which it is.